What's up, YouTube? Hi, welcome to the channel. My name is Juju, and in this video we'll be going over my top picks for all the cards in Mortal Judgment. So now that we've done PTR and all that stuff, I have a better idea of what's pretty strong, what's okay, what's not okay. In this video we'll be going over my just completely top picks and what I'm looking for when I'm pulling packs from the set. If you didn't see my set review for Mortal Judgment, feel free to go ahead and look for that in the channel or look for my past videos. I go more into depth about each card and what I think about it. For this video, I'm just going over like pretty much the top cards. So for Deception, we're going to go ahead and start this off. My first two cards are going to be Appeal to Mercy and Corrupting Influence. Both these cards summon 1/1 minions that are not from your domain, which is good, and then you give strength to them. Appeal to Mercy summons 2 random 1-mana war creatures, and you give 1 strength to them. Basically, these 1-mana war creatures are pretty good already. Imagine pulling like a Nocti Raider or a Boilblood Outlaw, like that kind of stuff. Those are really decent stats for 2 mana, so you should be watching out for this card. Same thing applies to Corrupting Influence, except instead of summoning 2 random 1-mana war creatures, you're just summoning 2 1-mana creatures from another domain. Then you tempt fate those creatures and you apply the buff to both of those creatures, and that could be really nutty. Imagine summoning a Veteran Hoplite from the light domain or a Marshwalker from the nature domain, those cards, and then buffing them via tempt fate, like giving them protected or something like that. That's insane value for 2 mana. So yeah, you can definitely get your mana's worth for that, even more, and that's so much value. And the fact that it's an early game card means that advantage carries on throughout the game, right? It snowballs because of just the way Gods Unchained is designed. The earlier you play a card and the harder it is to deal for your opponent, the more benefit you'll get from playing that card. So Corrupting Influence and Appeal to Mercy are going to be my first picks for the Deception class. My next pick is going to be Aspect Juggler. And the reason why I like Aspect Juggler is for the same reason I like Corrupting Influence and Appeal to Mercy. You're basically summoning 1 mana. For 1 mana, you're summoning 1/1 worth of stats plus another 1-mana creature, and that could be crazy. You can summon a Veteran Hoplite, Marshwalker, Injured Sprout without the Roar effect, so it's still a 1-mana 1/4. So many cards. You can even summon that Legendary Dragon that's a 1-mana 2/6. That's crazy to me. So being able to do that with this card in pretty much the first turn of the game is pretty wild. Imagine opening up with double Aspect Juggler. That's actually broken. So yeah, I think this card is really good. Rollicking Lyricist along those lines too, falls along those lines too, but in my opinion, I think Aspect Juggler is the better call because you can just play it earlier and apply the pressure earlier, and that's really good. Cool. Honorable mention for Deception, of course, the legendaries Pietro, Galatea, 20-sided Mace also falls into that. I think all these cards are solid, but not as game-breaking as the aforementioned cards. Cool. For Death. All right, so I'm going to stay away from all the Death Anubian stuff because I think, yeah, although Death Anubian 1-mana stuff is pretty hype, I feel like it's getting so much attention that a couple of other cards are getting overlooked. I will say though, out of all of these cards, I'm most excited for the card that I'm most excited for is Land of the Dead. Excuse me. And that's your 5-mana spell. Select up to 6 1-mana Nubians from your void and summon them to the board. That's pretty good because essentially you're getting 6 mana of things for 5 mana. Not much to say there. In terms of other death cards, nothing really stood out to me too much besides all the Pharaoh's Heirloom 1-mana Nubian stuff. Maybe Breach Colossus just because of its sheer size, but that doesn't really do anything for me. If I had to choose one card out of death that I was most excited of, it would be the 5 mana Land of the Dead. For light, all right. There's one card in light that I'm super excited for and is probably really busted. It's Line in the Sand. For 2 mana, you give each enemy creature can attack for 1 turn. So that's basically a sleep effect, right? A mass sleep effect. That's really good. Like, straight up, for 2 mana, stop your opponent from doing anything, basically, or dealing damage to you. That can set up so many things for OTKs, for decks that want to stall. Maybe you're running a control light deck, for example. That card is pretty wild. And yeah, this is probably the best light card that got released. And that's saying something because Aggressive Superior is also a part of this list. And for 1 mana, you're basically... for 6 mana, you're buffing your board to 5 strength and 5 health. And that's pretty good. I mean, on turn 6, you basically play this and with a bag of tricks, and you buff your board, and that can mean game if your opponent doesn't have anything to stop it, right? So, for example, I don't know, a really common situation in Zoo Light is having a board full of like high health minions but not a lot of high attack minions. You play Aggressive Superior with a bag of tricks, use the Empower effect, and now you have basically a board full of 5/5s. Yeah. And that could be really powerful, especially if you have 5 minions on board. If you have 5 minions on board, that's 25 damage on board already. So, really good stuff. Other than that, nothing really stood out for light. These 2 cards, Line in the Sand and Aggressive Superior, are probably the best cards. Cool. Moving on to War. So, War... I'm very excited for War because some of these cards are pretty insane. For example, honorable mention Sign of Strife for sure, and Commander Pyros. But the game-breaking cards are probably going to be Garen the Red, Mobilized, and Unrestrained Power. These 3 cards in particular are very strong as a combination. Basically, play Garen the Red. You at least proc it for once. You play Mobilized at a discounted rate. From there, you use the Empower effect for 5 mana. And then you basically discount whatever you need to discount for the Empower cards. Unrestrained Power is on this list because you double the strength of your relic if you play the Empower effect, and that's pretty insane, especially if that relic has God Blitz and you're buffing it with either a Whetstone or Sharpen or something like that. So yeah, that's nutty. Like a situation that I'm imagining right now is like, okay, I play Garen of the Red, cool, discount the Mobilized, great. So next turn, on turn 5, I play the Mobilized with the Empower effect, and if I had 2 Mobilizes in hand, get this. Garen the Red, both Mobilize, play the Mobilized next turn with the Empower effect, you get to play another Mobilized for 0 mana, and that's disgusting, really. And then if you have Unrestrained Power in hand, maybe you have 2 copies. If you have 2 copies of Unrestrained Power, that's essentially like what? Yeah, you play the Unrestrained Power for 1 mana, and then you play the other Unrestrained Power with the Empower effect. That's insane, especially if you have a relic. So look out for this card. Oh, and by the way, you also have an empowered relic, which is Headsman Axe, and that's God Blitz, right? So yeah, that's insane. It's also an Empower card, so it gets affected by Garen and Mobilized, which is, yeah, pretty nutty. Okay, on top of that, you have all the other Empower effect cards. My favorite is Lycos Adherent. That card is pretty good. You can also discount a Cunning Challenger so that you can play a Cunning Challenger on turn 5. So that's a 5 mana 6/1. That's wild. That's wild to me. I'm sorry. But yeah, that's essentially why I'm excited for those cards. Probably the best cards out of War Set. Cool. All right. So... cards in Magic. I'm only excited about 2. I mean, Reject Dogma is good. Obviously, it's draw a card for 1 mana. You empower 1, you deal 4 damage, and obliterate a spell in your hand. That can have some implications too. But the main card that I'm really excited about, and everyone should be really excited about this card, is Alistrina Prime Refractor. For 4 mana, reduce the mana cost of cards in your hand by 1. Very good. Empower 3, do the same for your deck. So for 7 mana, you can discount your whole entire deck by 1. Will you play the Empower 3? Some situations you can, but honestly, the Roar effect is straight up all you need, right? So yeah, this card is busted, especially when you consider all of the 1 mana cards in, I don't know, the Magic class, right? You have all these 1 mana spells that let you draw a card. You have Form of Power. You have Ancient Text. You also have, this doesn't just apply to spells, by the way. It applies to creatures. So you discount your Warp Engineer, your Portal Wrangler, your Shadow Scryer, your Merlin. All of these cards get discounted, and that's crazy. That's such a good effect. That's part of the reason why Garen's really good too, because when you get to discard mana, you get to play cards earlier, and some of those cards can be really strong. Don't get me started if they're 5 or 6 mana cards that get down to discounted to 5 mana cards, or 7 mana cards to 6. You get to wait 2 less turns. So discounting mana is very powerful in this game, which is why Alistrina is probably the best card out of Mortal Judgment. Another card that I want to highlight, Immaterialize. I like this card a lot. It's essentially cheating mana for your minions too. You basically divide the strength, health, and mana cost of a friendly creature in half, add a copy of it to your hand. This card has implications with a lot of great Magic cards. Off the top of my head, Archimea, Alistrina, Helpful Aetherfox. You got even the Static Aetherbug. I don't know, like Demetrios, for example. Oh my god, yeah, Demetrios is kind of busted because if you have multiple copies of a final draft, doesn't Demetrios discount both copies? Or buff both copies? That's wild to me. Frumentary Researcher can also be a thing, right? So, yeah, honestly, this card is really good. Really freaking good. Cool. Moving on to the nature cards. So for nature, as I check my audio, I always have to do this mid-video. I'm sorry, y'all. That's just how I am. Nature freaking got so many good cards. Injured Sprout, War's Wake is going to be game-changing, I think, or at least meta-bending. And the reason why it's meta-bending is because of these legendaries, Dagon, Silk Spike, and Dahlia. Silk Spite, sorry. Dagon is the Blitz, regen 1, and when a creature is healed, give 1/1 to it. Hey, Injured Sprouts get to heal so much, right? Silk Spike, after a creature is healed and roar, summon a 1/1 Noxious Arachne with Deadly. It then performs an extra attack on a random valid target. Holy crap, that's a lot of value. Dahlia, the Night Gardener. Echo, when a friendly creature is healed, summon a 1/1 Injured Sprout. So Dahlia is basically perpetuating the whole like heal thing, right? So you get this with a field full of like regen creatures. It's pretty much game over, right? And then you have all these buff cards that work with nature. Wildfire, for example. You have the new United Reinforcements, which gives 2 of the following to each of your Amazon and wild creatures. 2 strength, 1/1, or 1 health, and heal them for 2. On top of that, you have Volcaz, which we're going to cover later. But these cards alone put nature over the top. And when you combine them with things that are already good, like, I don't know, Canopy Barrage, Lightning Strike, Underbrush Boar, Marshwalker, Black Jaguar, nature has a lot of tools to be top tier at the moment. And I'm willing to put money that nature is going to be probably one of the top decks of the format, at least until something gets nerfed or whatever. But I don't even know if they're going to nerf it. I think it's actually pretty nice design for nature. I don't know. I could be wrong though. Nature might be the most oppressive thing coming out of the set, so we'll see what happens. But other than that, I'm looking for these cards because they're really good. Cool. Now we're moving on to the neutral cards. There are a couple of neutral cards that I'm looking for. The first one is Undertow Rover. This is your 3-mana 2/3 Atlantean. At the end of your turn, give protected to a random other Atlantean. This is great. Give it to a Phase Touch Golem. Give it to a High Roller. You give it to a Shade Walker. You give it to a Boost Walker. Atlanteans are just so good. And uh, this card provides such a good amount of value for the 3 mana slot, right? You summon basically a 3 mana 2/3, but with protected, and that has a lot of great implications. So that's why I'm including onto this list. Another card that I'm including onto this list is Ceres, Arbiter of the Trial. 5 mana. When you play a card with Echo, refresh 1 mana. You get to refresh mana by playing a card that's already has like it has synergy with Echo cards, right? You play a card with Echo, they create a 1 mana card. You have Ceres on board. You refresh 1 mana. This gets extremely nutty, especially when you include Alistrina. Yeah, imagine like, I don't know, a scenario where you Alistrina, you play a Ceres, and then you play all your Echo creatures, and you refresh all those cards, and then you play more Echo cards. It can be insane. Don't get me started if you have a Frumentary Researcher and all those Echo cards are mystics. You know what I mean? So yeah, I like this card. I think it's insane. Definitely something to keep an eye on. And last but not least, to top off the list, I'm going to go over quite possibly might be one of my sleeper picks for the set. And this is going to be Volkaz, Master of Pain. Volkaz is your 4 mana 3/3 Nether. At the end of your turn, deal 1 damage to each creature, then heal each creature for 1. Now, why I'm saying Volkaz might be a sleeper card of the set, it's basically because there are a lot of classes that benefit from this effect, right? For example, when I think of the 3 gods that benefit from this, I'm thinking about War, Nature, and Light. War, of course, with the survive effects being pushed out, I think Volkaz plays a natural role in that, because at the end of your turn, you already proc those. You get to proc those survives damage effects, right? Sign of Strife, Woolly or Tamed Mammoth, even Dragon Tooth Warrior sometimes, and then you get to heal those cards. So it's like you proc the effect for free essentially, because you're healing the damage you've done, and that could be really good. This also works with Nature. When you play this card with a board full of Nature cards that say, when a creature is healed, give 1/1 to it, or after a friendly creature is healed, summon a 1/1 injured sprout, or after a creature is healed, you get what I mean? Like, this card is insane in certain decks, and yeah, it will definitely see play in either Light, War, or Nature, for sure. So keep an eye out for this card, because I think it's one of those underrated cards that not a lot of people are garnering hype with. On top of that, it does AoE damage to your opponents if they have 1 health creatures, right? So it has the potential to weaken your opponent's board, which could be very good. So yeah, don't count out Volkaz. I think Volkaz is probably one of the better cards in the game. Yeah, and that's pretty much it, y'all. So going over all these cards, let me know if I missed anything. I think these are pretty much my top picks for the set. The card that I'm most excited about is honestly Alistrina, but there are definitely some cards that I want to try out. Unrestrained Power, Mobilize Garen, that combination. Mid-range Nature is also something that I want to try out, especially with the new when this card is healed cards. Yeah, and Aggressive Deception, really. Aggro Deception looks super good just because of those cards. Aspect Juggler, freaking Appeal to Mercy, Corrupting Influence. Of course, a Nubian 1 mana death stuff. That's always going to be fun, but I feel like people are tunnel visioning on it. Like, there's so much potential here. Atlantean's got a buff. Yo, your Light got Line in the Sand. That is like crazy to me. Give each enemy creature can attack for 1 turn. What? Now all we need is an OTK for Light, and we're pretty much set, right? So but yeah, that's pretty much how I feel about the new set. Honestly, Mortal Judgment's going to be really fun, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the metagame develops and evolves, I think it's about to be a good time. And if y'all are, waiting for your packs, like, I'm excited to see like what we pull and what people think of and all that good stuff. Yeah. All right, y'all. With that being said, thank you for tuning in. If you like the content, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and like I said earlier, if what cards are you excited about for Mortal Judgment? I'd love to hear your thoughts, and maybe we can get some discussion going. Yeah. Anyways, take care, y'all. Have a great day. Tell your loved ones you love them, and I'll see you next time. Peace.